So please don't make me wait, 'cause I don't wanna break. No, I don't wanna fall. When you're next to me, content, I'm not afraid to be. You don't make me wait, and never let me break. You never let me fall. Darling, hold my hand. Cause I don't wanna walk alone anymore. Won't you understand? Cause I don't wanna walk alone. I'm ready for this. There's no denying. I'm ready for this. You start me falling. I'm ready for this. I need you holding. I'm ready for this. So darling, won't you hold my hand?
Waking up knowing there's a reason. All my dreams come alive. Life is for living. With you, I've made my decision. You lift me up, fill my eyes with wonder. Forever young in your love, this freedom's untainted. With you, no moment is wasted. See the sun now bursting through the clouds, black and white, turn to color all around. All is new in the Savior I have found. This is living now. This is living now. You lead the way, got your eye beside me. In your love, I'm complete. There's nothing like living with you. This life you created, I choose. See the sun now bursting through the clouds, black and white, turn to color all around. All is new in the Savior I have found. Oh, this is living now. This is living now. You take me higher than I've been before. It's your perfect love that sees me soar. God, your freedom is an open door. You are everything, one and more.
Maybe I ain't really know what living is. Is it love? If it was, am I living it? Do I live in it? So astounding. Love is an ocean, you can drown me. The sweet embrace, the lovely taste, I taste and see. I'm under grace, the place to be. It means I'll never need an umbrella. I'm cool in the cold, in the hot weather. Whether or never I ever understand, I'm a man in the hands of great plans. I stand with faith there in a life I never known to touch. And still outside my clutch, but I'm like, what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? Live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given's a gift. If I'ma live it, I'ma live it to death. So what's the dream of? What's the hope in? What's the doubt for? And live to no end. This is living. The life I've been given's a gift. If I'ma live it, I'ma live it to death.
Living now. This is living now. You take me higher than I've been before. It's your perfect love that sees me soar. God, your freedom is an open door. will shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Discovery Church. We're super glad that you all are here. How are you all? Good. That's good. So, of the 4 services, that was literally the loudest response. So that's what kind of weekend I'm having. Just so you guys know, we've taken seats out of the sides of the auditorium so that you guys can dance, as I know you all love to do. So feel free to use that space as we worship the Lord together. You guys stand up with us.
Heaven thundered and the world was born. Life begins and ends in
break our expectations. Our hope is anchored in your name, name of Jesus. Oh, we trust the name of Jesus. You are the only King forever. Almighty God, we lift you higher. You are the only King forever, forevermore. You are victorious. You are the only King forever. Almighty God, we lift you higher. You are the only King forever, forevermore. You are victorious. You answer me from where the thunder hides. Can I run this heart I'm tethered to? With every step I collide with you. Like a tidal wave crashing over me, rushing into me. Your love is fierce, like a hurricane that I can't escape, tearing through the atmosphere. Your love is fierce.
seek me out. How could I be lost when you have called me found? You chase me down, you seek me out. How could I be lost when you have called me found? You chase me down. How could I be lost when you have called me found? Chase me down, you seek me out. How could I be lost when you have called me found? Like a tidal wave, crashing over me, rushing into me. Your love is fierce, like a hurricane that I can't escape, tearing through the atmosphere. Your love great is your love, great is your love. Oh, you guys can have a seat. We're going to move into a time of communion here this morning, and this is how we choose to recognize the sacrifice that Jesus made. How we take a moment to remember that we were lost in darkness, that we were held back in sin and iniquity, that we were on this collision course with hell, that we were refugees in a strange land, and that our God loved us enough to come and to bleed and to die to free us, to set each of us free from that which held us back, to set creation free from the darkness that held it. That our God loved each of us enough to hang on a cross, to suffer and to die, to show us the way home. So if you're unfamiliar with what's going to happen, a tray is going to go up and down the aisle with a wafer and a cup of juice. Take one of each of those. Take it on your own time. We're not going to take it all together. But let this be a moment for you to remember, for you to sit in a spirit of gratitude for what was done for us. Not in a spirit of guilt, in a spirit of condemnation, and thinking of all the ways that we didn't earn this gift. So many of us in our culture today have this idea that when we're given a gift, we somehow have to repay it. Some of us keep these running tallies in our heads of everything that someone has done for us so that we can somehow repay them. We feel like if someone gives us a gift, we're now indebted to them. And so when we come to this place of communion and we accept and receive and remember this gift of salvation, of life that we've been given, it can often feel guilt-ridden. It can often feel condemning because of all the ways that we know that we can't pay this gift back, but that's not what the spirit of this gift is. We were never intended to pay this gift back. We were never intended to earn this gift. All we were intended to do is open our arms and receive it with gratitude and thanksgiving. So take those elements in that spirit of thankfulness and not in that spirit of guilt. And if you haven't been here with us before, you're going to hear those little plastic cups shattering all over the room. And it's this symbol that those things that held us in bondage, those things that held us back have been broken and shattered, that we've been set free, that we've been given the path home. All we have to do is walk down it. And if this is all super weird and you don't really know what I'm talking about, just pass it around to the next person. There's no shame in that. If you have questions about what this is, there'll be an opportunity later. But for now, just keep the tray moving and know that you are totally safe and welcome, and we're really excited that you're here. Just keep that tray moving. So let's pray, and then we'll share in that meal together. God, we thank you that you loved us enough that it didn't matter how big the price was. It didn't matter how big and painful and audacious and reckless of a thing you had to do to rescue us. You were willing to do it. And that you chose to come and to hang on a cross for us. That you gave your life willingly so that we could live.
God, we just ask that as we remember this sacrifice that was made for us, that you allow us to walk in a spirit of gladness and gratitude and thanksgiving and love for you and for who you are. That all of the things that tell us that we have to earn it, that all of the things that tell us that we're not good enough, that those be silenced, and in this moment we just hear your love for each of us. In your name we pray. Amen.
I grew up, you know, like in the church. We were there every Wednesday, every Sunday, and it felt very much kind of, you know, even with the series that we're going through now, it felt very much kind of judgmental. And the older I got, the further away from the church I got. And then when me and Jamie got, you know, together and we started having our children and started wanting to find that church to kind of fit back into, and we searched quite a few churches, you know. I mean, we went through churches in Texas, and then when we eventually moved here, we went through a couple churches here, and always kind of wanting to have that public show of we're changing our life, we're done with the old, and especially for me alone, just kind of wash all of that other garbage out of my life and starting new. And when we got to DCC, I found where I wanted that to happen. I'd like to thank my wife, obviously, for putting up with me, and my dad for pushing us so hard when we were younger to be in the church. I've got to thank him a lot for what I know and kind of giving me those good morals, even though I fought against them for so many years.
Hi, I'm Pastor George, Grant's dad. Grant was number 2 of the 4 siblings, but he always was the leader of the pack. He was an outgoing kid. Everybody loved Grant. It's so amazing to see how he's grown and how God has moved in his life. Thank you, Discovery Church, for allowing me to baptize Grant. And thank you, Grant, for making this new commitment. May God bless you in your new walk with Christ.
To me, baptism is just kind of your personal but very public announcement of the way that you want your life to go, you know. And to me, it's like that's your rebirth as a Christian. That's your first step in your journey. And so I think that if you can't personally come out and publicly say, that I want to be done with the ways that weren't working and start with something new, then, you're not giving it your all. And so I felt that it was very important for me to kind of go through that and to make that public and make that known and bring me to where I am now.
Grant, because of your profession and faith, I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, buried with him in baptism, raised to walk in the newness of life.
You guys stand with us as we sing one last song to celebrate that.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. Oh, I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. Oh, I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Go and have a seat.
I've been on a long road with the devil right beside me, rising with the morning sun. It's the hunger that drives me. Oh Lord, set my soul, take my pain and turn it into gold. 'Cause all I know is champion. I can take a beating, I'll rise again, running through the jungle until the end. I can live forever, I'll rise again, keep rising up. I'm champion. I can take a beating, I'll rise again, running through the jungle until the end.
I still want that motorcycle. I'm not gonna lie, I see that and I still want that motorcycle, right? And I've thought about it this week. I want that motorcycle for a couple reasons. One, it's just cool, right? So it's just cool. There's a part of me that would like to run away, and it's good to get away to kind of like retreat so that we can recharge and come back with more energy. But my problem is, knowing me, I might use that motorcycle not just to retreat, recharge, and come back full of energy. No, I think I might try to run away on that thing. Hey, I've got problems, I've got life and story that comes at me, and I typically tend to run away more than I would just retreat to come back and recharge. That's a lot of my story. We're going to hold on to that for a second. We're going to come back to that. I want to say welcome to all of you joining us today. We are so happy to have you with us. Yes, welcome to you. Welcome to you if it's your first time. Special welcome to you and everybody joining us online. So glad that you are with us. My name is Jay. I'm a pastor at this place. Loves to get to be here. And here's the thing. We know you have a lot of options for church in the Springs, but we know you have a lot of options for your weekend on a weekend. And so it means a lot to us that you would choose to be here on a weekend. And I hope that you're resting, that you're relaxing, that you're taking that time that we all need to recharge. And I hope those vacations are going well. But here's the thing I know about family vacations. You go on them, and they're not as much rest as they are work. Sometimes life tends to blow up within families, and fights come out. Come on, let's be honest. And so we not only need times to rest where we go on vacations, but we need a place to come back to that is safe, where we can work on stuff, where maybe we can be called out. And I hope that this is that safe place for you. Because here's the deal. We are not in this thing to try to fix you, change you, or even just tolerate you. No, we are people like you with lives and stories and things that we're not proud of, things that we've done. We all have mistakes and things we wish we could go back, erase, change, delete, do over. And if any of that sounds like you need to know me too, and you're not alone. And I hope that this is a safe place for you. Even some of those rebellious moments, right? We're talking about rebels. Talked about some of my rebellious moments for a while, but particularly last week, right? And I talked about the backflip. I'm feeling a little bit better. Thanks for asking. I really appreciate you asking. It was very kind of you. I could raise my hand just a little bit higher during worship, during that Reckless Love song, you know? But it still hurts. Thanks for asking. It was very kind of you. I have rebellious moments all over my life and story, right? And they started when I was real young, but I remember in my teenage years and my early 20s, it was extra bad. And when I was 14, my mom, knowing how rebellious I was and how many issues and problems I had, she said, why don't you go to church camp, okay? I didn't believe in Jesus yet, so don't hold that against me. Don't hold this against me because I wasn't saved yet, didn't know Jesus, so I'm going to tell a story. Don't judge me for where we're going. I didn't go there for Jesus. No, why did I go to church camp? The girls, yeah. Either you know me well now or you have done something like this too. And so I went for the girls and try to have fun and make all these friends. And the weekend's going great, okay? I had one crush in particular, but I had a few crushes. I was going to see where things would work out, you know? But this, I'm just saying, I'm a terrible person, okay? I'm not proud of a lot of my life and story. But there was this one girl that things were going really well on, and it was time to go to bed. And all the leaders had us go to our cabins where we're supposed to go. And I didn't want the night to be over. So I started talking in the dorm room and got all these guys in the dorm room to hatch this plan with me. And it got louder and it got bigger. Before we knew it, the whole guy's dorm from the camp was jam-packed in this one room practicing what we were going to do. And so about a group of 50 of us, all the dudes who were at the camp, all the teenagers, we all went and we surrounded the girls' cabin and we prayed for them. No, that's not what we did at all. No. You're like, no. What we did was we developed this chant that was going to scare them and all this stuff. And so we say 1, 2, 3, and we go boom, 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 boom. Ooba chaka, and it's like this like scary, crazy thing. And there's girls screaming, and there was girls crying, like the boogeyman's coming to get me. And it was awesome. I mean, it was awful. It was terrible, right? Like it was awful. But here's the thing: they came out, and this snowball fight started. But it hadn't snowed the whole time, and we hadn't done enough. You're right. The second half of our plan hadn't hatched yet, and we needed something big. And so one of my friends walks over to the fire extinguisher, and he looks at me, and he's like, and I say, yeah. And that was all he needed, and he loosed this fire extinguisher all over everybody inside because we were half inside and everybody outside, and we ruined clothes, we ruined the inside of stuff, we had to pay bills, I was not allowed to go back to the camp, and like all this stuff, and I get it, okay? I get my life, I have a lot of rebellious moments, okay? And I have a lot more rebellious moments than even that one, a lot more of them, and a lot worse than that one in my story. And the thing is, we're in this series, Rebels, and what we're talking about is this rebel. And we've defined a rebel as someone who rises up in opposition to something that is wrong. My problem is I don't look like that version of a rebel. Rather, for most of my life, I look like a man on the run from what that looks like. I know the guy that I should be, the man that I want to be, but I keep rebelling. And so for 3 weeks, we've looked at these model rebels from the Bible. This week, I wanted to look at a guy that I see myself a lot in. Yeah, a guy who didn't get it right, a guy who's pissed off at God, a guy who runs from what God is asking him and calling him to be and do, a guy who looks a lot like me. I want to look at Jonah this week. Okay, he didn't get a whole lot right in his life. Even towards the end of the book that we have, he didn't get a whole lot right. And I see a lot of me in that. And what we really want to chase after is there any hope for a rebel like me, or maybe some of us sitting in this room today, to become the rebels that we were meant to be? We're going to be in Jonah, like I said. We're going to be in Jonah chapter 1, kind of all over all 4 books. And if you don't have a Bible, we'd love to give you one as a gift. You can follow along like that. We have everything on the screen. The cool thing about the app, if you download our DCC app, you can follow along, and it tells you where I'm going and the points I'm going to say. It like lets you get ahead. I love it. Okay, I love that app. So you can download that, follow along with us. Here's what you need to know about Jonah before we just jump in. He was being called to a land called Nineveh. Okay, Nineveh is now what is modern-day Iraq, and back then it was home to the Assyrian Empire. And the Assyrian Empire was known for one main thing in the land. They were known to be the most meticulous and slow and violent killers. And they would torture people, especially people from out of their country, people who were just foreign there, and nobody wanted to go there, right? It wasn't where you take your family on a vacation, right? Nobody wanted to go to this land of Nineveh. And that's where God calls this guy Jonah. And let's jump in. Jonah chapter 1, verse 1. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. And after paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. And I get it, right? God calls him to this crazy, awful place. I just described it, and he says, I don't want to be there. But I don't think sometimes we realize how far he ran to get away. And so Greg's been doing this really cool thing. He's been bringing maps and laser, and I figured, I want to try it too. So I got my handy-dandy laser pointer, and we're going to look at a map, okay? All right, so we've got this map. Okay, we don't think about how far he ran. It says that he headed down to Joppa, which is maybe up here, his hometown. He comes down to Joppa, and it's a 600-mile journey from Joppa to Nineveh. That's where God's calling him. And he didn't want to be there. So he went as far away as he could from Joppa. And Tarshish is located in Spain. This is the furthest trading route that he could have gone to cross the Mediterranean. Here's the thing about the Mediterranean. It was dangerous, okay? There were storms all the time, and not only that, there was pirates. He didn't care about any of that stuff. He just wanted to get away from what God was calling him to do and who he was calling him to be as far as he could. Right? Does that sound familiar? Like when we have problems or when we know God is calling us to be or do something, we might not want to do it. I know this is for me. We tend to run away, and that's what Jonah is doing. See, what happens when we run away is life tends to blow up. See, life blows up when we run away to escape our problems. Life blows up when we run away to escape our problems, and Jonah's life is about to blow up. These storms are going to come, and life's going to get worse. He's trying to get super far away, but instead of getting better, like we think we're going to when we run away from our problems or who God is calling us to be or what he's asking us to do, we think it's going to get better. It gets worse. It gets worse. A couple years ago, I was a student pastor at a church here in town from like 2010 to 2014, somewhere in there. It was like 2 years, 2.5 years, somewhere in there. And God made it very clear to me and to my wife, Kirsten, that we were no longer supposed to be there, right? And so we resigned, but we don't know where we're going to go to. And I wasn't happy towards the end of my time there, but really I wasn't happy because some things were going on in our marriage and in our life that were not great. See, Colorado Springs is my hometown. And I'm a little extroverted, and my wife is not as extroverted as me. I don't know a whole lot of people that are, right? And this was not a place where she could become and find who she was. And in my shadow, right, we've processed this a lot, she started to go to sleep, and she became depressed. And I got frustrated and more angry. How do I fix you? That's kind of where I went as a husband, as a guy. How do I fix this problem? And we didn't know how to fight for each other's hearts. And I was getting angrier, and she was getting sadder and more depressed. And so we said, we need to get away from Colorado Springs. Really, we need to run away. And what do you do when you don't know what to do? You go back to school. That's what you do. And so we moved to Chicago and I started into my master's. And here's the thing, all of our problems came with us. Surprise, surprise, right? I had school debt already. I had this massive truck loan. I've talked about that in the past. We had all this debt, and guess what? I had a bunch of credit cards. Half of them were already maxed out. We didn't have jobs. We just had school. So more debt, more stress, and you know what finances do for a marriage when they're stressed. They bring it together and everything's hunky-dory, right? No, they make things worse. And so I got a job because I wanted to help out with that. And because I got this job and I was giving more time to that, my grades started to suffer. I was taking a full master's level course load, and I was starting to fail everything, and my life was blowing up. I couldn't talk with Kirsten. We couldn't talk together. I couldn't get my job right. It kept showing up late, and I would be tired. Life just blew up. It was the hardest, worst year of my life, and it was a very difficult first year of marriage. And it all started because we were running away from our real problems. And when we run away, life tends to blow up when we run away to escape problems, or we run away to escape who God is calling us to be. I don't know if that has any me too in that for you, but we do that, right? And what do we run away from? We run away from conflict or from tension or from grief, or we run away from things that are going on in our life. And where do we run? We run to, like I did, maybe another city. I just need to start over. That'll fix everything. Or we run to a bottle. Hate to say it, but I've been there, done that. Or maybe we run to drugs or whatever it is. Whatever we need or whatever will minimize our pain and let us get away from the real problems, we run away to that. Why? Because maybe what we are being asked to do, who we're being called to be, is too painful, too scary, too difficult. Nineveh is scary to us. And so we'll do anything we can to choose comfort over challenge. Because this is going to be easier than walking into the problems, walking into the conflict, walking into the real stuff. So we're going to run away. And that's what Jonah does. Jonah runs away. Right? And the storm comes while he's on the ship, and everybody's like on the ship, they're like, the storm is coming and it's getting worse. We need to talk to God. So they have an impromptu prayer meeting. They gather everybody they can, different gods. Who is responsible for this? How do we calm this storm? And it comes up that Jonah is responsible for it. And so what is he doing? Jonah is below deck and he is asleep. Okay, we're not going to read it, just summing it up. He's below deck and he's asleep. Now, falling asleep to our problems is one way that we can run away. And I got in trouble for calling her out, but I'm going to do it again because it's not always bad. But my wife tends to fall asleep in the middle of conflict. Not like while we're standing up and fighting with each other, no. Like she'll walk away and it just becomes too much for her. And there's a thing about that is good and healthy because we have a little rest, we can rest. It's healthy, right? It's healthy. It's good. Working on our problems. I didn't practice that one. We have a little rest, very much with an R, and we can come back to our problems fresh and new. And so Jonah wakes up. Oh my gosh, that was awesome. That was great. Okay, so they wake Jonah up and they say, we got to walk into our problems. And this is what he says in verse 10. Verse 10, this terrified them, okay, because they know that Jonah is responsible for this. What have you done? And they knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. The sea was getting rougher and rougher, and so they asked him, what should we do to make the sea calm down for us? Basically, you're the reason for this thing. Do you have any bright ideas? How do we fix this? And he says, pick me up. Throw me into the sea, he replied, and it will become calm. And I know that this is my fault and that this great storm has come upon us, come upon you, so just pick me up. He's saying, my problems have followed me. My calling and where I'm supposed to be, it's followed me, and now I see that it's affecting you. And so the people respond to him. Instead, the men did their best to row back to land. We're not going to let this innocent guy go, even if he's in the wrong. But they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. They cried out to the Lord, please, Lord, do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, for you, Lord, have done as you pleased. And they took Jonah, they threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. And at this point, the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord, and they made vows to him. And you know how the story goes. They throw him overboard, and he gets swallowed up into a big fish, right? And this is where the story kind of gets hard for me. All right, I was praying through this story. I've been thinking that I was going to talk about Jonah for about the past month or so, and it just on Tuesday it got real crazy to me. Like, this is a kids ministry story, right? Like he gets swallowed up by a whale. There's a part of that doesn't seem real life to me. In fact, I got brought back to my Church of Christ days, right? And since I have this laser pointer, I want to show you what a flannel graph is, because we didn't have technology. We didn't have any instruments or anything like that. We had flannel graphs, and so they would explain the story of Jonah like this with the flannel graph. And here's the sea right here, and it was just a piece of felt that they would put other felt on that had cool colors on it. So the storm comes in. And it goes over to where Jonah is, and they have to throw Jonah overboard. And they grab Mary, and she goes overboard too with her little wheel wagon here, right? And I remember in kids ministry, this was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is awesome. And the story spoke to me. I started thinking, I'm going to be in a room full of adults, right? Like this story, is it the same? And so I started reading commentaries. And different theologians have different theories on this. Is it a literal telling and every word happened? Is it a myth? Is it a metaphor? Is it satirical? And here's where I landed, okay, with all of these different takes on the story of Jonah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it literally happened or if it's a metaphor. I have personal beliefs, I'm sure you do too, but it doesn't matter. And some of that conversation can take us out of the main point of this story. The real point of the story is that we can learn and we can take away things from anything. And when Jesus was on this planet, he would go around telling parables, which were made up stories, and they moved people, right? Think about some of your favorite movies. Movies move us, right? I remember watching this movie, Click. It's an Adam Sandler movie. It's not a good movie. It's really not. But I walked out of that movie. It's all about him having this remote control, and he fast forwards life. And I remember thinking, I needed to slow down, and I need to take in every moment. Right? It's a stupid movie, but it moved me. Right? And that's what the story of Jonah could be, because there's so much Me Too all over Jonah's story. I've spent a lot of my life, and I continue to run from things. Right? And so he's running. And in the middle of his running, I don't know if you caught it at the end of that, it says a whole boat full of people were saved. A whole boat full of people turned to God because they saw how God worked in and through Jonah when they put him into the sea, and they all decided to believe. Here's the thing. When we rebel and when life goes crazy, God is still working in us. Yeah, God is working in me and through me even when I rebel. He's still working in me and through me even when I rebel. I remember when I was in college, I had a whole bunch of really stupid ideas, and most of them I decided to do for even stupider reasons, okay? And I've shared some of that with you. Well, here's another one, okay? And so I wanted to do a slip and slide. Slip and slides are fun. You do them on the grass with like tarp. That sounded fun. I want to make it funner. And so we bought all the supplies, and then we set it up in the dorm hall. We had a tile dorm hall, and about every 50 feet, there's like those square pieces of tile. Every 50 feet, there's like this metal bridge that connects long pieces of tile. And so we put all this soap. We made a huge, giant mess, put a bunch of water out there, and we had an awesome slip and slide, right? And we're going on our bellies or on our butts or whatever it is. A couple of us mustered up the courage to go on our feet. It was incredibly slippery. Okay, and so I make it through, and we're good. We're good, and a couple other people make it through. And then this dude made it through who was really coordinated. We thought he was going to do great, and he got to one of those cracks that was bridging the tile, one of those metal cracks, and he tried to jump over it, but as he jumped, he hit it. And so jumping, but his foot is still attached, he cycles down, and his head hits the metal piece, splits it open, and it fractures his skull. We got in so much trouble. I've gotten in a lot of trouble in my life. I've had to pay for a lot of things, and I get it. I've done some bad stuff, right? And so it was terribly wrong of us. We shouldn't have done it. But here's the thing. God was still working because all of the dorm rooms were open. And we found out a couple days ago that one of those dorm rooms that had been closed, that nobody had ever met, okay, he'd been in there for 3 weeks. Only time he was coming out was to go to the bathroom. It smelled in there. It was awful. And that night, he said that he was planning on taking his own life. Right? And he gets pulled out. Somebody says, hey, what's your name? Sweet, come here, come do this slide thing. And somebody made him do it, and he hated it, and he didn't want to be any about it. Okay? In the middle of my rebellious thing, which we shouldn't have done, somebody got terribly hurt. God was still working. See, God still works through us even when we screw it up, and he still wants to work in us. I told a story a couple months ago about one of the times that I've been arrested, and I've really been arrested 2 times, and I regret it. It's not good, but that arrest led to something. Okay, the story has like airsoft guns and like police helicopters. It wasn't a good story. You can go back and you can watch it, okay? Moral of the story is I had to do community service because of that, and I didn't know where I was going to do community service. And at that time of my life, I don't want to be in or around the church. I had no desire to be in and around church. And I said to my mom, where should I do community service? And she says, well, we're going to church here. You should do community service there. And so I ask, and they say, yes, I have to do 150 hours of community service. And God starts to work on my heart while I am there. And wouldn't you know it, there's a girl that I start to like who's there. And so I want to keep going back to that place, right? God uses the girls in my life for a lot of good things, right? Bad things, this is bad things, but there's a lot of good. And it totally started to change my life because of that rebellious moment. He was starting to work in me. And that's how God works. God wants to work in us and through us even when we rebel, in the middle of us running away from who it is that we've been called to be. And we get that. Okay, here's the thing. I have a lot of those moments. I have a lot worse than them. And it is hard for me to think that God is working on me. It's hard to think that he wants to give me a second chance. And I get thinking that some of my mistakes that I've made, some of the things that I've done have been done to me. I'm not worthy of God loving me. And I start to get stuck there. And I just want to say, if that's you today, there is no such thing as too far. There's no such thing as too late. God wants to come after our hearts and give us second chance and third chance and fourth chance and fifth chance. And speaking for me, I have needed it. And that's how he wants to chase us down. And all of those stuff that we're not proud of, right? That maybe they make a good story now, but in the moment we hated our lives because of what we did and how we had hurt people or whatever it looks like. All of those moments he is using. I was talking with one of our new youth pastors who's helping us out in Student World. His name is Andrew, and he works with middle school. He's been working with high school a lot, and he's a pretty good dude. He found this quote. The quote goes like this: "Don't despise the pain of your past because it may have prepared you for the fight of a lifetime." Right? Don't despise the pain of your past because it may have prepared you for the fight of a lifetime. A lot of us, we want to walk into church and all those rebellious moments, let's just pretend like they never happened. And let's go after this God guy, or maybe I'm just going to show up to church. No, he wants to use all of our stories to work in us and work through us. And he's working on Jonah. And he swallowed up in the belly of a whale for 3 days. And Jonah says, I don't want to be like this anymore. So he prays and he repents. And the big fish, it spits him out. He spits him out and he says, God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. He says, for a second time, he says, go to Nineveh. And so he goes and he says, tell the people about their rebellious and evil ways and tell them about it. Tell them that they need to stop or in 40 days they're going to destroy the city. So he does that. And it had to have been hard for him, okay? He's walking into this city of people that hates everything that he's about, that is quicker to kill people than accept them. It must have been difficult. But over the course of those days, 120,000 people, all of the city, it says in the story, decided to turn to God. And God used this rebellious dude to do something big, and God sees it. And in verse 10 of chapter 3, verse 10 of chapter 3, God says this, or this is how God reacts. When God saw what they did and how they turned from their evil ways, he relented and did not bring on them the destruction that he had threatened. But to Jonah, this seemed very wrong, and he became angry. He prayed to the Lord. Isn't that what I said, Lord, when I was still at home? What I tried to forestall by fleeing to Tarshish? I knew that you were a gracious and compassionate God. Time out. Is he yelling at God for being nice? I think he is. I knew you were a compassionate God, that you were a loving God, slow to anger, abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. Now, Lord, take away my life, for it is better for me to die than to live. He's a little whiny baby, is what Jonah is. It's better for me to die than live because they don't deserve it. And God replies, and he says, is it right for you to be angry? Look, it's a short book. It's only 4 chapters. It's really 2 pages of your Bible, right? The first 2 chapters is all about God's love for Jonah and how he wants to redeem, restore, and rescue him. The last 2 chapters is how he wants to use him to redeem and restore and rescue maybe people who didn't deserve it, but did Jonah deserve it in the first place too? Right? And Jonah has this thing going on inside of him that I don't think they deserve it. I wonder what his 40 days were like. We don't know in the story, but he's walking into a place where they would rather kill than accept somebody. It had to be hard for him. All over the Bible, we have people who were beat up or when they were standing up to do what God told them to do, they were cussed at or they were yelled at, they were called names. I wonder if he went through something like that. And after all that, he says, they don't deserve it. They don't deserve it because of what they've done to me. And here's the thing. There are too many people in my life and story that I have said that to. There's too many people that I have said that about. And sometimes we get angry at people. The problem is we tend to get angry at a lot of people. And Greg has said this before. Jesus loves you, and I'm trying. And that really hammers home for me, okay? There's some people that is hard to love, that is hard to forgive. And I think this whole Jonah story, looking at me as somebody who's run, I think it leads us to this question. We're all about second chances in this place, and we know that God is all about second chances, but are we? Are we about second chances? Okay, we like the grace and the second chance that we've received, but are we good at letting everybody into that second chance too? I wrote this story into here, and I was just like, like when you get cut off in traffic. Well, yesterday, on my way to church, I'm driving my tiny little economical car that trucks don't see. You know what I'm talking about? And this huge black, like Sierra Denali, just like totally cuts me off. I have to slam on my brakes and like turn to avoid being hit. I was so mad at that dude. Or like when you're trying to get out of a sports event, and all you see is brake lights in front of you, right? And it's like, how am I supposed to get out of here? Is anybody moving? What's going on? Grocery stores. Grocery stores are my personal kryptonite. This probably doesn't happen to you. It seems to happen to me all the time. I'm getting all my groceries. I have everything, and I'm ready to check out. And some person decides that they can cut in front of me and in front of other people in front of me. This has probably never happened to you. It happens to me all the time. One time I was 8 deep in a grocery line. That's a sucky day right there. I was 8 deep in a grocery line, and it was such a long line that there was a space in between us so people could walk by. Well, there's somebody in front of me, and this person comes up, and he sits, and he gets in line, and he doesn't know it, and I was getting ready to say some things. In my head, I was thinking, I hope you step on a Lego, right? Right? That's not what I was thinking. What I was thinking in my head, I can't say in church, but that's how I'm going to summarize it, right? Fortunately, the person in front of me called him out and said, hey, there's a line back here. Don't know if you saw it. And he went back in line, okay? There are things that happen in the moment that just, they piss us off, right? And it is hard to have grace or to have second chances for those people because our anger takes over. But there's people from our past, too. From my past, about 3 years ago, I went to our 10-year high school reunion and bring everybody back together, and that's kind of nice, to see old friends. But you guys know why high school reunions are a thing, right? So we can get together and compare ourselves to one another, so we can brag about what's going on in our life now and try to make other people feel bad about what they did to us or whatever, and so that we can ultimately feel bad about ourselves afterward. Okay, maybe you loved your high school reunion. I did not love my high school reunion. I don't know if you could tell. But I'm connecting with people that I used to know, and here's all these people, and I start talking to this dude who made my life a living hell. And we're getting into conversation, and he's talking about whatever he's talking about. I don't remember, because high school Jason took over. And high school Jason wanted to kill him. And now all I want to do is show him that my life is awesome. So I'm bragging about my amazing wife and my awesome house. And look at my dog. And I just go on for like 5 or 6 minutes about how great my life is and my job and my church and all this stuff. Where's his second chance for me? Look, I have written him and I've told him, hey, we need to get back together. But there are a lot of people from my past, okay? Maybe even sometimes, not maybe, definitely, parents that I need to forgive on some things that they said and did and have done to me. People who did far worse. There are people from my past that it is hard to think about this whole second chance thing for. And people from my present too. This past year, this past month, I've wanted to quit for a couple reasons. Okay, this past month has been a difficult growing season for me as a man, as a leader, and this whole thing, studying the Bible and what Jesus has for us. But the past year has been difficult too. And I've had, not this past month, but in the past year, I've had some people come up to me and say, "You're a terrible pastor. You're an awful leader." In fact, I've had plenty of people come up and give me a reason to want to forget them rather than forgive them. I had this one teenage girl that I've been working with for a couple years, and my wife and I have been working with her, and she started making some choices. She's no longer in high school, but she reached out to us. And we started to lovingly, in a safe way, say, "You're always welcome with us, and we hope you come back. Here's some things that you need to be thinking about." And she went off on me. She went off. She said, "The only thing I've learned about you, from you is how not to love people like Jesus, how not to look like Jesus, and you should be working for a garbage truck because you're trash." And I was like, I was trying my best not to laugh because that was a pretty good burn, right? And there was a part of me, that was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, all right, okay, great." But here's the thing, what we do with all of those comments, people from our past or in the moment or people from the present, I'm not telling that story so that you'll come up to me afterwards and say, no, you're a great pastor. That's not what it's about. It's about people in our lives, all of our lives, who are saying things about us, who push us the wrong way. And here's the thing, yeah, it's hard to give them second chances, but some of that stuff gets internalized. Because I'm not a perfect leader or pastor or guy, some of that stuff, there's little hints of truth, and I start to think about myself in an awful and terrible way. This is what we do, we internalize that stuff. And not only is it hard to give other people a second chance, maybe God has given me a second chance, but have I? One of the hardest people to forgive in this world is myself, right? God's all about second chances, and he's given one to me, but have I given me second chances? Have I given the people around me second chances? And I get it, it's difficult, it's hard, and I just want to run away sometimes. This month, like I said, I've wanted to run away from this job at times, from who I'm being called to be in this place because it's difficult. And I'm sure you have moments where even now you want to run away from stuff, and it's difficult. And so we need God to wake us up. We need God to shake us up. We need moments like what Jonah had, where we're stuck and we realize what's going on in our world, and we have to respond to that. And he does that in all sorts of ways. What's that been like for you? After I did my community service at the church, I did this crazy thing. I asked them if I could do an internship. And I don't know why the pastor of that church said that I could do it, but he said yes. And about a year later, I came back and I started into this internship, and I met this dude named Chick. I know, it's weird, a dude named Chick. It's a weird name. I don't know why he'd want to call himself that, but that's what he wanted to call himself. His name is Charles, and that turned into Chick. I don't get it. Anyway. So we start working together, and he didn't know that he was going to be getting an intern, and I didn't know that I was going to have a boss. I don't like bosses. Anyway, just saying. Do you? Okay. All right. Sorry, that's a whole different thing. All right, I'm working on me. Okay. But the summer was crazy. It was wild. We spent probably 60 hours a week chasing after hearts and stories and loving on people and doing trips and camps and all these different things. And he taught me how to do all these Bible studies. And then he said this really weird and crazy thing that I wasn't into. He said, "I want you to speak for a couple times. Yeah, you've never done a message or anything like that before, and I know you've never wanted to, but I want you to do that." And so I taught about Nehemiah over the course of the summer. And then he said, "I want you to speak about this guy Jonah," because here's what he did. He knew the story of Jonah, and he was getting to know the story of me. And he knew all the ways that I had run and that I was still running. He knew what I wanted to do, and so he says, "I want you to speak about Jonah." And one of my last things in that place was I talked about Jonah, and then he brought me up on stage at the end of the summer, and he says, "Thank you," in front of all these people. They were thanking the interns. "Thank you for everything you've done." And he said, "What do you want to go back to, and what are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to go back to business because I want to make money, and I'm going to be a businessman." And he said, "Stop running." In front of everybody at a group like this, he said, "Stop running, Jason, and go to Nineveh." And because I had just studied and worked on Jonah, and because of everything that was going on in my life, in that moment, I just started crying. And I couldn't find him to punch him in the face because of the tears. I couldn't see where he was. It was this powerful moment where God reached out through this dude and through this place and said, stop running. Go to Nineveh. And see, here's the thing. We look oftentimes more rebellious than the rebels that we all want to be. And it's easy to run away from our problems and from the things that are going on in the world, and maybe run away from the men and women that God has called us to be. And this isn't about getting a whole room full of people to give up their lives and jobs and become church pastors or start more churches. We don't need more churches. No, we need more people on mission. We need more people looking and living like Jesus and fighting like he did and loving people like he did. And what would our city look like if we had a whole bunch of rebels who realized the rebellious moments from my past, the ways that I run from stuff, those have prepared me for what God is calling me to do and be and how he's called me to love. So here's my question. What are you still running from? Where is your Nineveh? And like an amazing friend once told me, go to Nineveh. Jesus, I thank you so much that you don't give up on us. You chase us down. You break walls down. God, you don't give up on us even when we give up on ourselves, when we give up on you, when we give up on the people around us. You don't give up and you never quit. And so Jesus, thank you for chasing after our hearts. And I just want to ask for my friends who've been running, for myself who's been running from it is that who you've called us to be and what you've called us to do. God, would you put people, would you put things in our life that stop us, that break us down, and cause us to see more of the picture of the people that you're calling us to be. Help us go to Nineveh. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, thank you for being here with us this week. Really, it means a lot to us that you're here with us. If you have questions about this crazy place that we call DCC, anything like that, you can go out these doors, turn left. There'll be people in the garage. They would love to answer any questions. If you need prayer, if something is going on in your world, it's falling apart, and you're realizing, man, I'm on the run. I want to stop running. There are people underneath the screens to my left and my right who would love to pray for you. They'd love to walk into that stuff. We don't pass a plate or a bucket. We don't want to pressure you. Rather, we have boxes on the walls. If you want to partner with us financially and jump on mission, you can do that on your way out. I'm going to be out by the fireplace. Thanks for being here this week. We'll see you next week.
Well, not non-existent. It's non-existent.